fine.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start the meeting. I think we have some 2 minutes past time. We've got a quorum, so we're good to do it. We want to welcome Ashley to the board. Andrews, I think everyone knows her as the new Main Street Director. Does everyone know Mark, new City Planner?
Probably not. Mark Jennings, City Planner, been here for just over 6 months. Can I make sure everybody has their microphone on? Just so that Larry will be, you're good, Lyle. I got yours on for you. That way Larry can hear us on
Yeah,
the
the
phone.
green button.
Yep,
Yep.
mine
You
is
got
lit
green
now.
lights
All
on? Okay.
And you're good.
Okay.
Green lights on?
Yep.
Yep. And are we recorded for this? or-
Yep, we are being
Okay.
live streamed on YouTube.
Okay. So, we'll call it the meeting to order. Way of introduction, we all know, but for the 4 people who are watching us on YouTube, on the live stream, I'm Jeff Logan, Chairman of the Mitchell Historic Preservation Commission. We have 7 members, 4 of whom are present today. 5 with Larry Jersa, who's joining us on the on conference call, on speakerphone. So we do have him with us. To explain a little bit, well, I guess we'll do the roll call and then we'll get into the next agenda item. Everyone just want to introduce yourselves, I think is the best way to do it. Pat, we'll start with you.
Pat Clark, retired Mitchell resident.
Miles Hunter, retired,
Longtime Mitchell resident?
long time.
Ashley Enders, Mitchell Main Street and Beyond Director.
And Jeff Logan. And Larry Jersa, you want to just talk on the phone?
Okay, Larry Jersa, local architect. I just happen to be extremely busy lately for some reason, I don't know, but I guess that's good. So I still have an office in Mitchell, but in the wintertime I made the recent decision to spend winters down in Texas because it was too cold up in South Dakota for me. So I think that part has worked out pretty well, but I plan on actually coming back to Mitchell next month and spend warm months in South Dakota, and then next year I'll try the winter down here again, see how that goes. So that's kind of generally my plan. I have a lot of projects going on, so I'm committed probably for the next couple of years with projects in Mitchell. So I don't know. I guess it just doesn't let up, which is good. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell.
Good plan. Thank you for joining us. And we're all jealous.
Yes, we are.
You'll notice on the agenda is election of officers. The mayor decided to actually read the law books, which is an interesting thing. And it turns out that we have terms that the officers are elected for a 1-year term. We haven't had a meeting for over a year, so we'll have to re-elect ourselves. I had been serving as the last chairman, and I'm willing to do it for a while. Now, our terms run from July 1 to June 30, and I am termed out. I think I'm the only one who's termed out, aren't I, Mark? Everyone else has a year or 2 to go?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. And then I'll have to sit out. So if someone wants to step into the chair position, I will trade chairs with you.
You can actually be chair still until...
Yes, until then, right.
Yep.
But know that come July 1, someone's going to have to step up to the plate. We have, and Mel Pooley was not able to make it. He had a conflict, so he couldn't join us. Jim Beekler was not able to make it as well. So are we, by statute or just appointment, how many members can we have on the
Minimum of 5, maximum of 10.
Okay, maximum of 10. So if you think we should recruit some more members,
We'll drop for fast.
yes, we have. We can do that. But I guess I will entertain motions from the floor. First for chairperson. Someone wants to make a nomination. Or if they want to nominate themselves, like I say, I would be very happy with that. Go
I
ahead.
nominate Jeff Logan.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Can't just quite do it that way.
Oh, do we have to do a roll call?
No, well, we will have to do roll call for everything, but are there any other nominations?
Any other nominations?
Any other nominations? Is there a nomination to
I move the
cease?
nomination cease.
Okay.
Okay,
Second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay. So in favor of the first of the motion to cease nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Thank you, Larry. Now we can go ahead and vote on the chairperson. All in favor of Jeff Logan as continuing as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, hearing none, I will continue in this office. Vice chair.
Have we had a vice chair in the past?
We really haven't had a vice chair that I recall. Do you have anything?
I don't have anything in the
Mark?
minutes that show that there's a
No.
vice chair ever.
I think that seat was vacant for a while.
Your ordinance for this board says you have to have a vice chair.
You have to have a vice chair. Now, that does not require that they step up to chairperson.
No,
It's not like going through the chairs.
it's if the chair is unable to attend the meeting, vice chair usually runs the meeting, or the secretary can run the meeting, which
Right.
happens often.
So I think the first thing we should ask for a volunteer.
I take it, someone nominate me.
Okay?
I'll nominate Pat Clark for vice chair.
Okay, do we have a second to this nomination?
Second.
We have a second. Any other nominations? Okay, do we have a motion to, the nomination cease?
So moved.
So moved, second?
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Anyone opposed? Motion is passed. Now we vote on Pat Clark as our vice chairperson. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, Pat Clark is our new vice chairperson. Secretary, Neil Putnam, when he was city planner, just went ahead and took the job of secretary as far as preparing minutes, calling the meetings, and doing the required public notification of the meeting. We have to have that up 7 days prior, publicly posted on the website and on the front door. So Mark told me earlier that you're willing to...
Yep, I'll take care of all that stuff.
Okay. I think we should do a motion though to formally
Yep.
make Mark, who is ex officio as a city employee, however, he can serve as an officer. So if someone will make that nomination, we'll make this all official.
Also move.
Okay, Pat moved.
Secretary.
Do we have a second? Lyle seconds. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 I think we have a little time delay with the phone, so we'll wait and make sure that we have Larry's vote on there.
Still have to cease nominations.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So we'll see, any other nominations or a motion to cease?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
No second.
Ashley, Pat second. All in favor of the motion to cease?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and in favor of Mark to serve as secretary? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Hearing none, Mark is secretary. Declaration of conflicts of interest, I suppose that we need to sign new declarations. Do we have the forms?
No, that's not for forms, that's to see if there's anything you can't vote on for the meeting.
Does anyone have any conflicts for the topics on the agenda for this meeting? Hearing none, I did attend Dakota Wesleyan for a year and served 12 years on their board of trustees, but that's been a decade ago that ended, so I don't really see a conflict of interest there. So we'll go ahead then. Now, the discussion should stay along the agenda and we shouldn't veer from it since this is a public meeting and open to the public. So Do we have a motion for approval of the agenda as was presented to us by Mark
So moved.
last week? Okay, we have a motion. Lyle, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Pat seconds. So all in favor of approving the agenda, or,
They should really all be roll call because we have somebody on the phone.
okay, so then we'll do a roll call on it. Larry, we're going to start with you. You're the first person to my left going clockwise around, so.
Okay, it's a yes for me?
Okay, Pat?
Yes for Pat?
Okay, Lyle?
Yes,
Ashley?
Yes.
Okay, and I will vote yes as well, but not necessarily on this. So the agenda is approved. We do have some previous minutes that are in your packet. This meeting goes all the way back to August 21st of 2019. You've read them. We don't have to read the minutes into the record, do we?
No, we don't.
Good, okay. They have been posted online as well, so they're available for anyone to read. We did have a facade construction and a raising of the building at 305 to 307 North Main. So does anyone have any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented?
I'll just point out, they did take our advice and they let them put the natural color on the old Bowie building.
Yes.
That's when they want it painted black, and Larry particularly didn't think it was good to paint over existing brick. The contractors actually.
And I think that was a victory for the HPC as well. We suggested that they maintain the corner entrance and the rounded curve that gave that building kind of its art, more modern style. And when they first presented the plans, they did change them on the final plans that were presented and we voted on. So we were able to maintain some historic character to that building and hence the downtown. So that's good. Any other comments, corrections, additions, changes to the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Pat? Looking for a second?
second.
Lyle seconds. All in favor of approving the
No,
minutes?
roll call.
Okay, roll call, sorry. Larry?
Yes?
Okay. Pat?
Yes.
Okay. Lyle?
Yes.
Okay. Ashley?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Now we can move on to new business. Item 7 on the agenda, review and comment regarding the raising of 2 buildings at Dakota Wesleyan University. Those 2 being Music Hall, previously known as Prather Hall. It was at one time the president's residence, I think, when it was first built. Also, the other building is Science Hall, also previously known as Hughes Hall. That's located at 1200 West University. I think you're all familiar with the buildings. I don't know that if you've been, has anyone been in the buildings recently?
I've been in Science Hall for play a couple of years ago.
Yeah, okay.
The theater's still pretty good, you know, but they replaced that black box.
Right.
I've probably been in the hallways and stuff, and it's definitely a 1910 building. It hasn't had much done to it since 1910.
Well, let's, yeah, I think those are the 2 oldest buildings on campus. So we do have representatives, Louis Schoenfelder and well, yeah, from Dakota Wesleyan, who will present their case for demolition and raising these buildings. So the floor is yours. Come on up.
I would just suggest that we do the Prather Hall first, or
Yes.
do
We'll take
one
them
at a
separate.
time, so we can have separate motions for them.
Yeah.
Whichever you want to start with is fine with me, just, we talk about one,
Yep.
then we talk about the other one.
Let's do Prather Hall. I think that's the first one, and that's up on the screen. So we have, so go ahead, and I've got one here on the screen. So actually,
I
we'll-
know we had some, I think she's probably has one already. We had some printouts of some of the information I sent. Do you have one, Jeff?
Yep, they're in
Yeah,
our
they're in the
packet.
packet.
Okay.
But
Okay,
both
and-
would be good for,
Two photo albums on the way on.
start one here and
Yeah.
one there.
Yeah, we had some, I'm Louis Schoenfelder. I've been with the university for a while. I'm the director of the physics plant. This is Kevin Adams. He's a co-worker of mine, and we have the two buildings that we talked about here, Prather Hall and Hughes Hall, and we're not using either one of them now. Prather Hall has been empty since 2018, and the basement has very much deteriorated over the years, and part of the reason we moved out was this front part right here was that just attaches to the building, and where the pillars go down on the bottom there, it appears like when they built that, they never put footings underneath that. They just put fill in there and poured a cap on top of it and then set the pillars on top of there. And as it deteriorated, that settled in the front there, and the building itself, the windows, of course, over the years, they're outdated, and the basement is in pretty tough shape, as the pictures will show you most of that. And we haven't, the last group that we had in there was the alumni offices, and they moved over into the Dakota Discovery Museum after we assumed control of that. We did a remodel on the inside and moved them over there, so this has just been empty. And we have no plans of putting anything back in there. It's, the bats have kind of taken over, and we would, we just request permission to take it down. It's just going to continue to deteriorate. The roof is in pretty bad shape. Part of it was a flat roof, and that's, the soffits are all deteriorated as well. And I believe that one was built in 1909, I think. And, there's quite a few years. It's been used for different things, and quite a few years when there was no money to be spent on it, before I came along. It wasn't anything to do with the maintenance to the building. There just wasn't any money available to keep it up, and there's we have a lot of other buildings to take care of, and we can't keep them all. We have no immediate plans for the space, except for green space, just clean it up and maybe plant some trees. That's plans at this time. So if you have any questions?
Louis, those colored pictures really illustrate the beauty of the woodwork in a lot of places.
And the floors and.
Yeah, and we plan on saving as much as is feasible. That oak and Prather Hall doesn't have a tremendous amount of it, because a lot of the rooms upstairs have steel door frames, and the original stuff is gone. There's some oak woodwork downstairs and some flooring. We really don't have use for it, but we'd like to see recycle as much as we can. And the same thing with the veneer on the outside. We may keep some of it we really don't have a future project, but on both of these projects, we plan on keeping some of the stone. And if the rest, if we can find a market for it or recycle it somehow. The contractor that we talked to, whatever there isn't a market for, they will grind it up and recycle it as for fill, or just aggregate and cement or something like that. So.
On that granite, that's the Sioux Quartzite, or
Yep.
Sioux Falls granite, whatever it's called. That is if that can be reused, several buildings in Mitchell made of that, all quarried at Sioux Falls or Hill Rapids area. That is a stronger vein than what they are mining now, quarrying. The veins they use now is a softer vein, and that's what's ground up for
Okay.
paving our streets. So these veins are a lot stronger and somewhat valuable for anyone restoring those buildings. So I hate to see it ground up.
Yeah, and we would too, and we're hoping that there's a market for it.
Well, the government.
We'll do what we can, or we would do what we can to recycle both the veneer on both buildings.
Yeah, it was reused in library from the old boys' dorm.
From Graham Hall there, yeah,
in Graham.
yeah.
I want to stay in this building first, but are there any plans for new buildings at Wesleyan that some of this granite might be used?
No, not at this time. The building that we just opened up, we just took occupancy of in January, was of newer construction, and none of it used any of the Sioux Court site on that building. And right now, we don't have anything else in the immediate plans. So.
Louis, this is Larry Gersa. I wanted to make a couple comments and ask you a couple questions. Just kind of for you guys' information. Years ago, when I worked in Atlanta, when the subway system was going through the city, they had to demolish a lot of old buildings. And during that time, they had a program. They still have the program. It's called a HABS program. It's a Historic American Building Survey program sponsored through the National Park Service. And the purpose of that program was to preserve historical buildings on paper prior to razing and demolition. Some buildings just don't make it through their whole lifetime, and these two buildings probably sound like their useful life is over with. But I'm just curious, has the university or Louis, have you researched anything with the National Park Service on performing a HAB survey for these buildings? And technically what that is basically drawing the building on paper, and these drawings are documented and filed in the Library of Congress in the United States, and they're a truly historical document where the buildings are preserved on paper but not necessarily physically preserved. I've actually done one of these maybe 45 years ago, and they're not all that difficult to do, but basically what it is you're taking whatever existing structure is there and you're documenting it on paper, dimensionally, where it's an architectural set of plans of what's there. I'm just curious, has anybody or you from Dakota Wesleyan researched any of this with the National Park Service to see the process of all that and how that could be done?
No, we haven't. Other than, the pictures and stuff that we have in the archives and the records, we haven't pursued anything like that. I guess if that's something we need to pursue, we could,
Well, I think in terms of Prather Hall, Music Hall, that's such a unique structure. I think that one certainly is worthy of trying to preserve on paper. I'm just suggesting that because I realize the buildings are apart and they're too expensive to fix. And that's the whole purpose, I guess, of this HABS program, is to preserve buildings that are specifically in that kind of condition. And there's literally thousands of them throughout the United States every year that go through this, and I think they have, somewhere around 35 to 40,000 drawings in the Library of Congress that surveys have done on old historic buildings in the United States. And it's just a process of preserving the buildings in a different way. That is just something that I don't think but that was something that I think I would encourage you all to maybe research that and see how that could be accomplished prior to raising and demolishing the buildings. And in these surveys, there's no particular component of the building that you have to save. It's all saved on paper. If you want to throw every bit of it away into the garbage can, that's perfectly fine, because it's all saved on paper. It would be your option if you wanted to recycle some components or save some woodwork or whatever. That certainly would be entirely up to you. But like I said, the program is intentionally to preserve buildings on paper, and that's it. It doesn't go any farther than that. Anyway, I'm just encouraged maybe you guys to contact the South Dakota Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service Office and see what the process of that is and what's entailed. I'm not sure what the current guidelines are. The one I did is about 45 years ago on an old house. And things that you can't see, you don't document. It's not like you got to tear the whole building apart and detail everything out. It's not that kind of a survey. So, like I said, it's fairly simple and upfront and forward. But I think these buildings would be worthwhile doing that. Quite honestly, I really do.
Okay.
Thank you, Larry. Let me just add that I think the albums you passed around are a good start, but you would need a lot more photographs. And these kind of focus on the deteriorating parts of the building and we need some that show the beauty as well. What Larry speaks of, the HABS survey, is standard when demolishing a historic building. Are either of these buildings or is the campus area on the National Register?
The campus itself is, and these two buildings are the only two of the that are on the historic register. So.
That are left.
Yeah.
So I check into that. The State Historical Society can give you more. We went through this with Holy Family, both when they demolished the parsonage and the old grade school that's alongside Holy Family.
Yep.
And they had to do the survey, take the pictures, some architectural drawings, as Larry said, and then those were filed with the federal government Park Service. And that's pretty standard procedure for issuing a demolition permit as far as our advice on it, our recommendation for a historic building. And I think Larry's right, that's something that we would definitely want to require if we vote to recommend, which is all we can do, recommend the permit to raise it. Does anyone have any other questions or observations?
I guess I did hear a little bit from the public, and it's pretty much consensus that Science Hall is not much hope for it. But if the money was there their ideas, it would be nice to say Prather Hall. But obviously, nobody's willing to write a chapter. Because that is pretty historical, and it looks good on the campus and everything. It's a shame to see it go.
Keeping it on Prather, I agree with you. We had some meetings for Fusion Church in there a couple of years ago when you were still using it at the tail end. And I will say there's a lot of settling. Floors are buckled and tilting and all that, and I think it would require more. And as far as a practical use for it, it was originally built as a home. It was carved up a little bit for offices or for practice rooms. To put a modern, adaptive reuse, modern use to it, pretty limited and hardly expensive. But I think at this point too, unfortunately, Mel couldn't be here and isn't benefiting from the discussion and the photos. But Mark, would you read the email that he sent, I think, to the two of us on the agenda?
PW raising of any of the buildings in the packet was to be delivered to me. I'm against it. The quote I saw is a small price to pay to restore classic buildings that cannot be replaced with typical architecture today. Much of what was noted looked more like normal maintenance, had been curtailed long before it became critical. For instance, knob and tube wiring was phased out in the 1950s. What did they do about it? Buildings are not to be consumable. They're not a consumable item in my world.
The knob and tube wiring had that. Was there any of that still in use, or was some still alive?
Still is, yeah.
So I think the building, I'll say it had been maintained. It's now. Should that knob and tube wiring been replaced? Yes. But that's the least of the problems there. It's expensive. What are the feelings of the rest of the members of the commission?
I will just remind you that you are to be agreeing with the case findings from DW, disagree with them, or no comment. That's your three options today.
Just one question, the letter from the State Historical Society, they made the comment that their office has initiated an investigation to determine whether or not the project has been considered all feasible alternatives. Is that still underway, I wonder, or is that considered?
That would be what they are presenting right now, is with them showing the cost of what it was to rebuild or maintain it. I mean, that's one of their options as to what they're trying to show. But that's part of this whole
So
process.
this is part of the investigation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussions before we ask for a motion for the recommendation of this commission?
I'd just like to clarify on that, maybe something that Mel, if you didn't understand, but on that, the numbers that were there that were from Pitts Corporation for Prather Hall, that 100 and whatever it was, 143,000, that was, all that was the front porch area. That didn't even go inside the building. That was just to repair that overhang. And that was in 2010, I believe. So.
Well, I'd like to see these buildings restored. I just can't believe that there's any way we can fiscally, financially do it. So, I read the motion
To agree with the recommendation or the application from Dakota Wesleyan? Is there a second to Lyle's motion?
I'll second.
Second by Pat Clark. Any further discussion?
Jeff, could you repeat that motion again for me, please? I don't think I heard it quite right.
I think I'll, do you want to, okay, I'll paraphrase, Lyle said that because of the cost of trying to restore the building and the practicalities of it, he made a motion to agree with Dakota Wesleyan's findings that it would be impractical and financially impractical to restore it, and
Okay.
recommends that we agree with their application to raise it. So we have a motion and a second. Any comments, Larry?
Well, I'm okay with that. I would like to, I would prefer to delay it a little bit until the whole National Park Service HAPS program is investigated to see if that is a possibility for Dakota Wesleyan to preserve the building on paper trying to raise it. I don't have any problem with raising it, but once it's gone, you can't preserve it on paper. And I just think one should precede the other, that's all.
Okay.
I actually have no problem with raising the building whatsoever, but I think there should be an attempt to save it on paper.
Larry, would you make a motion to require a HAB survey or whatever the current requirements are to the motion, and then we can vote on that amendment? Would that answer your concerns?
Yes, that would be.
Okay.
I will make that motion to recommend that the National Park Service be contacted and a historic American building survey attempted to be performed on the two structures prior to any demolition. They should be preserved on paper. I understand they are financially in tough shape to restore, which I certainly have no problem with that, and I have no problem with raising the building, but I think the attempt to save them on paper should be made first before they're raised.
Do we have a second to Larry's motion?
I'll second that.
Ashley seconds. And I think too, if you talk to, when you talk to the state, South Dakota Historical Society, they're going to ask the same thing. I think that's going to be a requirement. So I think that's a good motion. Let's, is there any discussion on the motion, or I think we can go ahead and vote on it?
Voting on the amended motion, or the
All right.
amendment.
The amendment first.
The amendment first.
Yep. All in favor of the
Nope,
amendment?
gotta go roll call.
Oh, got to go roll call, okay. And, sorry. We never did that before. We never followed the rules.
Probably didn't have someone on the phone. Anytime there's someone
Well,
on the
that's
phone, you have to go roll
Okay,
call.
so this is a yea or nay on Larry's amendment to require the HAB survey. Larry?
Yes.
Pat?
Yay.
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
And I agree, vote yes as well. So the motion is passed. Now, we go back to the original motion that Lyle made to agree with Dakota Wesleyan's findings, their application to raise it. Any other discussion on that?
Louis, have you heard of any of the alumni that are against the project? It seemed like a great moment.
No, and the board is very much in favor of this process, so,
The old Holy Family building, we heard all kinds of noise.
yeah. And we may, I don't know, we
What
haven't,
do they know about it even?
we haven't heard anything, I haven't heard a word from anybody yet, so.
I think it's been talked about how well that's known among the alumni.
Yeah.
And spread far and wide. There could be people come out of the woodwork, but you haven't heard complaints
No,
on it.
no, I haven't heard anything against it. I mean, everybody, you know, it is a cool building. I mean, the building from distance looks pretty cool, and it always has, but as time goes, it doesn't get any better, and it's just, you know, the structure of it is just very expensive to repair and to make use of it with the floor plans and stuff that it is, you know. I think we've gotten our use out of it, and
Well, and the other comment I make too, as far as the architectural style, you kind of got a semi-Victorian wood frame house that doesn't really fit with the architecture style of the rest of the campus. Anyway, it's always been a little bit of a sore thumb there, even 50 years ago. So, if we're ready to vote on the motion, any other comments before we call the roll? Okay, so this is on Lyle's original motion to agree with the application to raise it, and we'll pass that along to the state, city, and everyone who has to also pass on it. Larry, your vote, for or against?
Yes.
Yes? Pat?
Yes.
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 And yes. The motion is passed, so you have our recommendation that, or agreement that you can go ahead and raise it. You just got to go through the other steps.
correct.
And Mark will help guide you through those.
Cool.
Let's move on to Science Hall.
Kevin's got, he's got a couple photo albums of Science Hall as well, he'll pass out here. And Hughes, we've had, the only thing that we've had in there in the last couple of years is we held one class over there in the theater because we didn't have classrooms big enough to accommodate that. The other classrooms, I think, on campus, we could only accommodate up to 32 people, and we had a couple theater classes, and I think there was one other one that were in the 40s, so we held that in the theater. Other than that, the building has primarily been empty, with the exception of Snack Pack is in there on the, they have an area on the west side of the building. And now with the opening of this new business center, we have classrooms that'll hold 16, 80 kids, and I think we have another one that's in excess of 40, so we haven't had anything over here since semester break at Christmas time, with the exception of snack pack.
Do you have a spot for snack pack to relocate to?
Pardon me?
Would there be a spot for snack pack to relocate to?
Do you have a spot? We haven't designated one yet. We've talked about it. Kind of wait and see what happens here, what kind of a time frame we have. You know, they're welcome to stay in there until we get a little closer to whatever we decide to do. But it's the pictures actually look better than the building does up close. The building's kind of went through the same thing as what Prather has, you know, over the years. It's just been outdated, and anything you do to it or that it needed 35, 40 years ago, the money wasn't there, and anything it needed was very expensive. You know, we have some roof leaks. They're not terrible, but it's still a clay tile roof, steam heat. The only part of it that was ever air conditioning was the theater itself. Plumbing is, of course, dated, and the electrical has been taxed as well. And it's been, you know, repurposed several times. We had biology labs and chem labs in there. And, you know, we've had a lot of students go through there. It's, so we, you know, we don't have, again, where that building sets, we really don't have any immediate plans. We may put a courtyard there, use some of the, you know, use some of the stone from the outside for some landscaping or something to kind of make of something that kind of dedicated to the building, so we don't lose track of where it was.
Are there any plans for a new building on that location?
Not at this time.
I know that this building does have the same thing with buckling floors and just my own observation of it. I haven't been in it for a couple of years. To reuse it, I think you need to gut it to the four walls and just rebuild it on the inside totally.
Yep.
And whether or not that's economical or would make sense, the thing I lament about losing this building is that it's the last building built in South Dakota grant, and it is the last thing in historic character in Wesleyan, and older buildings add that timeless sense of solid heritage and that kind of thing. And the first time I saw the campus at Spearfish, it looked like it was built 1950s communist block, blonde brick and pretty plain and horrible. I mean, it was the ugliest campus I'd ever seen. We may have done something since then, but the buildings in Wesleyan do have architectural style and are built much better now. But I do hate to see this building raised, but if there isn't a purpose in the cost of it, I assume you've examined that.
We have, and what seems to be, what they found is that it's easier to raise money to build a new building than it is to raise money to renovate an older one. And everything, requirements are all different. I mean, understand what you know, and we've talked about this too. We love, I mean, the building, it speaks for itself. I mean, it's it's a huge old building, and it is pretty cool. Kids that they recruit today don't necessarily see it that way. They want to come into a new building with new, with all new technology, and it's, I mean, for recruiting standpoint, it's a little different than the alums, you know. And this was never our intention that, you know, that this is what we wanted to do, but it's come to the point where we feel we have to because of the upkeep on it, and to make it useful, like you said, it's we've looked at that years ago too, before we built, before we made plans on building the science tower and this business building, and in order to make it useful was such a terrible expense, and we go back to the donors who will give money to build a new building, but not necessary to, and it's, you know, even to go into four walls, where you look on that veneer on the outside, if there's been some water infiltration on the inside and stuff, you don't see that until you really get the, I mean, that inner plaster and all the veneer off the inside to see just how bad it actually is. You know.
And, you know, with the new science building and new business school, even if it was your band, you probably don't have a need for it unless your enrollment, you know, increases by 50%.
That's correct. Yeah, we don't, right now, we don't have a purpose for it.
But, you know, just by remember, I know, I went to USD back in the late 1960s. There was a building called Old Main that was, I had a class and shortly after that they shut it down. That's kind of the symbol of the whole university. And it sat there empty for, God, I don't know, 20, 25 years, and I think everybody just kind of waiting for it, for a wrecking ball to come. And for whatever reason, I think because that's so much symbolic significance, they found the money to renovate it, and it turned out very well. They'll probably be there for another 100 years.
And they've got state money, I was just going to mention the old Maine, it's beautiful now, but they got it in the four walls.
It can be done, but it's
No.
expensive.
But they did have a purpose, and yeah, all my journalism classes were in there, and 50 years ago, the floors were buckled and
Oh, yeah, I remember having
different levels, yeah.
I mean, it was class there,
Horrible.
getting shot.
But, and it's probably 20 years older than Hughes. But when you're dealing with state money, it's different. Asking the alumni.
Yeah. And everything from the walls on up is wood structure. There's no steel rafters or anything in it. Everything's wood. And we have done some repairs up there. Several years ago, we had some separation on the rafters, and we used a structural engineer and that come in to stabilize it for the time being.
It's a lot of granite, I don't know how you reuse it. Any other comments, questions, or motion?
Well, I know basically the same thing as Fred Hall. I'd love to see it restored. The question that I think we need to ask, would you be willing to put money into it if you want to save it? And as much as we'd like to have it, it's a neighbor of ours. We're a couple blocks away from it, you know, so I'd love to see it. But, so I move that we go to allow them to
Agree
remove
with
the
their
building.
application?
Would that motion also include the HAB from National, or from,
Yes.
same as the amendment? So that way we can have it all in one.
Get it all in one,
Yeah.
that'd be good.
Perfect.
Reserved on paper.
What's that, Pat?
Reserved on paper.
Yes, preserve that paper. Larry, any comments? You don't have the advantage of the photos, but.
No, that all sounds good. I'm all for all that.
Okay, do we have a second to Lyle's motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ashley. We have a second. Any other discussion before we call the roll? Now that it's officially on the floor and discussion technically open, so. Okay, let's call the roll. So this is on Lyle's motion to agree with her application to demolish Hughes Hall on the Dakota Wesleyan campus. Larry, your vote in favor or against?
Yes.
Matt?
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll also cast a yes vote. So you have gotten our approval.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
Yes,
that.
And now it just goes on to the state and the other things. And do investigate the requirements, current requirements of the HABs survey and what's
Yep.
needed there. We had to do that with a lot of buildings
Yep.
that have just totally outlived their usefulness or
Right.
ability to do that.
Will we have to be together for final approval once the survey is done?
Looks like the drawings.
Yeah, do you know, Mark?
I think it's just depending on what SHPO says for,
Yeah.
with you agreeing with the recommendation to demolish and the drawings portion of it, it'll be up to them because we're just a recommending body.
It's a pretty thorough photo survey, but like I said, these pictures are good, but you need to add to them.
Sure, sure, understand. So,
And the description and history of it, what went into it, preserving. Okay, thank you.
well, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the commission? Yeah, go ahead and take the vote.
Okay, you guys, you wouldn't have any need for them at all? For,
I think, why don't you hang on to them? We don't have an archives ourselves, so I think if you can use them in the HAB survey, and whether they'll want them with the state application, or if, yeah, SHPO may want them, or the Carnegie is doing a good job, and thanks to Lyle, of preserving
Yep.
a lot of the local history and files. So
Okay.
if they require them, great, otherwise I'd recommend you
Well-
donate them to the Carnegie.
They'll be in my office, so if anybody needs them, this,
Or any archives
Check them.
Wesleyan has on the history. So,
yeah, you'd have better luck with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll scan them into
That's good information.
It is, thank
I'll
you.
be in contact.
all right, thanks.
Is there any other business to come before the commission? And I'll ask for public input. The public can always address the commission with their concerns. However, there's no one in the audience in the room. So with that, there are no items to be considered. And but in the future, if anyone does have concerns, they can bring them to the commission. Just state the name and concern, and we'll certainly hear your comments on any agenda item or coming up. So barring any of that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Quickly moved by Lyle, we've got a second. That one, I don't think we'll call the roll. Larry, we've got to make sure
Yeah.
you're in on this vote, okay? We can adjourn?
Okay.
Yes.
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 Yes. We're adjourned.